Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Frida Weisel. Here I cover all sorts of subjects that interest me as a Brooklyn-based Jewish YouTuber. I do long-form interviews, and recently I had the great fortune of interviewing the iconic Jewish woman, Barbara Kirshenblatt-Gimblett, about her life story. That is a separate video. This is part 2, where we talk about her work in Poland as the curator of the Polin Museum. Since my previous work on Polish Jewish history has sparked intense debate in the comments about the telling of this history, I was really interested in understanding how she navigated telling the story of Polish Jews through the museum. I hope you'll enjoy this conversation and check out part 1 as well. Here goes. I feel like we need to talk for a minute about Polish narratives about the Jewish past, because this actually was what got me to talking to you in the first place. I did a little bit of content about Poland, and I hope to do more content about it with other people. As I talked to you in the other conversation, Poles respond to my content very strongly when they feel there's any insinuation that there's anti-Semitism in the history of Polish Jewish relations. And I'm wondering if you can really quickly speak to that, just so we can wrap up this conversation a little more.
Sure. So I would say, first of all, there's also, in terms of the Polish public, there's a whole spectrum of points of view. I think that's really important, so that you have those who feel a moral obligation to confront difficult issues in Polish-Jewish relations during the Holocaust, after the Holocaust, before, and are really open and active in the way. Here's how I'd put it. Daria Stola, who is currently, he was just reappointed as director of Polin Museum, he says, and he's very, very wise, he says, the generation now, born after the war, they're not responsible for what their ancestors did, for the worst of what they did, for the best of what they did. They're not responsible. But they are responsible for what they do with what they know. That's their responsibility, for what they do with what they know. So you have very important, influential segments of Polish society that are taking that responsibility for what they do with what they know. Now, you also have many people, and they're on a spectrum too, but overall, anti-Semitism is a really painful topic for people living in Poland today. It's a very painful topic, and it is seen as the single most common negative view of Poland. If okay, there are numbskull jokes, but they're told about Newfoundlanders, and they're told about the wise men of Helm, and they're told about Poles. But let's put that aside, because that's universal. That's like blason populaire is the folklorist technical term for those kinds of basically ethnic slurs, but be that as it may. But when you come to what is painful for a person living in Poland today to hear, and that is to hear that they, as members of Polish society, are anti-Semitic, blanket anti-Semitic, and that they are personally anti-Semitic, and that as anti-Semites, they bear responsibility for the Holocaust. This is incredibly, incredibly painful. It's also not fair. In point of fact, it's also not fair. Now, at its worst, I wouldn't even say at its worst, but let me put it this way. The right-wing government, the one that preceded this one, had an historical policy, and the policy was to defend the good name of Poland. Defend the good name of Poland. I mean, what country, wants to have its citizens and the world trash it and have negative views? But to defend the good name of Poland meant to, I would say, to tone down accusations of anti-Semitism, to diminish its extent, to view blanket condemnations of Poland as an anti-Semitic country. Polish society is overall, that defending the good name of Poland was to, in a sense, fight against that. But it then, in a sense, devolves into something that is really problematic, which is to rewrite history, to underestimate the extent to which Polish neighbors were harmful to their Jewish neighbors, whether it was through blackmail or through snitching on them or through looting or, in any one of any number of forms. So what you get in the revisionist history is a few bad apples. More Poles help Jews than hurt them. That would be a Polish narrative. And that would arise from, I mean, how can I say? It's just anti-Semitism is the one thing internationally that tarnishes the good name of Poland. I can't think of anything else internationally where if you say Poland, the next word is anti-Semitism, and you say anti-Semitism, and then you can write off the country. And that is for everyone, it's devastating. Now, does that mean that there isn't anti-Semitism? There is, of course. But honestly, if you were to do today, for example, if today you were to look at the surveys of anti-Semitism in Europe and in North America, you don't have a Tree of Life, a massacre, like in Pittsburgh. You don't have the burning of, like, the 2 synagogue burnings, arsons that just happened. You don't see that in Poland. It's not happening in Poland. In other words, what I'm trying to say is that it's not a matter of saying other countries have more anti-Semitism. It's not a competition anybody wants to win. But Poland somehow or other has become so deeply identified, and it's understandable. The Holocaust, Poland was the epicenter of the genocide. That they'll never live it down. They didn't make it the epicenter of the genocide, but it became the epicenter of the genocide. And so it's all tangled up with actual anti-Semitism. And then this, I would say, more complicated, broad brush kind of characterization of the country and efforts to diminish it, efforts to make it a much more broadly understood phenomenon. So it's really, really complicated. It's not a question is Poland an anti-Semitic country? Yes or no? It's like saying, is France an anti-Semitic country? Yes or no? Is England? Is the UK? Is the United States? We would never say yes or no. You can't say no. And then if you say yes, what exactly are you saying? You know what I mean? It's like,
I understand. Yeah. I totally understand. I think what I came to learn through my work is that what you're saying now, you touch a very, very enormous nerve for the Polish people.
Absolutely. It's a sore point.
Yeah.
It's like it's a kind of a black mark on everybody, on the whole country, on a whole society, and on every individual in the society. And it's a really black mark. And to deny it, there's no nuance. To declare it, there's no nuance. And who's got time or energy for nuance?
Yeah. Well, I think we just had time and energy for nuance, which I really appreciate. Absolutely find it delightful to talk to you. I feel like saying Brindle. I don't know why.
Listen, it depends like this. My Jewish friends, because they know I use it in my email, they all call me Brindle. My Polish friends, they call me Basia.
Oh, that's your Polish name?
Yes. In other words, a lot of Polish names, some of them are quite long, like Agnieszka, Małgorzata. So they vary, Joasha, Jolanta, or Joanna, Jolanta, so it'll be Yola, Joasha, Bartek, Darek, Gosha, and I'm Basia. So, sweet. But also I'll tell you what's also interesting, and that is in Poland, I have a saint's day. And my saint's day is the same saint's day as the saint's day of the Polish miners that work in the mines. And I mean, my colleagues at Polin Museum, both Jewish and not, they're marvelous. So on December 5th, which is my saint's day, because I never knew I had a saint's day, they did a very beautiful, like a ceremony to honor my work that I had done there. And they ordered from the Polish miners their regalia, which is a hat that they wear with their uniform. They're very proud, and they have regalia, and they do parades, and they have ceremonies. And so I was seated like on a throne with the Polish miner's hat. And I mean, it's just so between Basia and Brindle and Barbara. And then when my Polish friends, they email me and use a short form, I'm Barb. So, and what's interesting is Barbara is a common name in Poland, but if you meet anybody in the US with the name Barbara, they were born in the 40s or 50s.
Oh, really?
Nobody. Do you have anybody that was born in the last 30, 40 years with the name Barbara?
Who's named Barbara?
Nobody.
Yeah, that's interesting.
You know,
It's going to come back. It's going to come back.
could be. It's not a bad name.
It's a beautiful name.
Listen, Frida's a nice name too.
Yeah, my name is actually Friday, and sometimes people will ask me if Frida is a German name, but that's what my parents gave me as my legal name.
Why?
But my mother gave me Frida, and then when I started to want to be more assimilated, I really didn't like Frady, which is the English equivalent of Friday. I don't know why I never liked it, and I started to call myself Frida, and actually my father really didn't like it. I remember how he said, if Frida doesn't get married in a nice marriage to a Hasidic guy, it did turn out to be correct that for me the name was symbolic of a more worldly name.
Interesting.
But I like it.
Yeah. So what names do you use?
Well, my family calls me Friday, and I, that's how I go by. And my English name is Frida. Actually, my mother thankfully recovered from cancer recently. And when she was in the hospital, we had this completely new scenario where we were in a secular context. We are always in the Hasidic context. And when it came to the hospital, the nurses would be like, who's this? My mother has 15 children. So they were keeping track of all of her children. And my mother would say, this is my daughter. And then eventually my mother would say, daughter, and she struggled. She would be like, how do I refer to her? And eventually she got comfortable saying, my daughter Frida. This is Frida. My daughter Frida will be with me here today. And for me, it was a very important moment, actually, to hear my mother refer to me as Frida. And I understood that she struggled with it. It was like not a Jewish daughter's name, but it was meaningful to me to hear it. So
wow.
I guess if my mother calls me Frida, you can definitely call me Frida.
Wow. So tell me, where are you in the birth order?
I'm number 5.
You're in the middle.
5.
How old is the oldest? How old is the youngest?
My mother had her 15 children in more than 30 years. So, yes. Yeah. Incredible.
So how old was she when she had the first?
I think she was 20 and she had her baby at 48. She's essentially, I think, a medical marvel, I think.
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable, yeah. She believes in Ein Hara, and you don't mess with good things by talking about them too much. And I think I take it from her a little bit as well. So I don't want to talk about, her having gone through cancer and having struggled with that. But she's just been incredible. She's incredible.
How old is she now?
In general. 69.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So she must have been pregnant a lot of the time.
Yeah. I think it was a very big adjustment for her not to have babies and not to have young children.
Wow. What a lively household.
Yeah.
But also,
I know she'll sometimes.
But that span, the older kids help with the younger ones.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. We actually talk about ourselves in like 3 batches, 3 shifts of children, because we were raised in totally different conditions between the 3 of us, like the 3 shipments.
Right.
That we came
wow. In. That's another whole world. Boy, I must say there could be a film like what the trajectory is for each of the 15 children.
I know. It's so interesting. And, speaking of fathers, my mother is a very introverted, quiet person, and she comes from a family of artistic introverts. But my father and my father's family are very big personalities. And it's very interesting to see how a lot of the children in the family end up being very big personalities. And it's like 15 children of big personalities and my mother making sense of that. That's a very interesting, like you said, it's like a film. It's
amazing.
Like a book.
Oh, that is so amazing.
Yeah.
And clearly, obviously these kids are so important to her. And having this family, of course, that means that Einiglich, there must be a million Einiglich.
There's so many, you can't keep track. I've realized that in the Hasidic world, you don't really know the grandchildren's names. There's a Hasidic man who told me, I don't know my grandchildren's names and I don't want to know. It's too much work.
Yeah, because if you have 15, did all the kids have kids?
Yes. Well, one of them, the baby, is 21. Not yet.
Okay. So, Oh my gosh, because Naomi Seidman did a beautiful family photograph with her mom and with all the kids in the Einiglich, and it was just her mother is amazing.
It's amazing.
Really.
Yeah.
Well, she is too.
Yeah.
Naomi's incredible.
Yeah, Naomi is an incredible person.